Good morning, men and women. Today we're going to start with some fractions work. And before we can start anywhere, we have to know our vocab. And we talked about this, and you're doing pretty well, but when I say a word like numerator, denominator, whole number, or proper fraction, you have to know exactly what they are without thinking about them too much and without looking them up. That's your job, to know what vocab means what term and what it looks like. So if you have to spend a few minutes doing that first before we even go into how to add and subtract and multiply, that's your first step. Because if you don't understand the instructions, because you don't know your vocab, you won't get very far. So the first type of fraction that we talked about is a proper fraction. And a proper fraction is just a fraction that is less than one whole. So if this says fraction, it says 2/3, and the top number is always our numerator, and our bottom number is always our denominator. And what that means is it is two parts of a three-section piece. So 2 is the specific number we are talking about, and 3 is the total amount of pieces in the whole. If we go to our next one, which is an improper, it also has a numerator and denominator, but this time the numerator is larger than the denominator. So 5/3 is an example of an improper fraction. Grade 8, next year you'll be able to leave your stuff oftentimes as an improper fraction. This year we are going to convert it back to a mix, which we'll talk about in a second. And the last type of fraction that we'll be dealing with the next few weeks is a mixed fraction. A mixed fraction is like this one right here with 2 1/8. And 1/8 is a proper fraction, but this 2 right here is a whole number. So what we're really saying is that there are two complete parts, two complete wholes, and 1/8 of another. So a mixed fraction has a whole number and a proper fraction beside it. That's the vocab to get us started. Now, before we go on how to add and subtract, and multiply and divide, we have to know how to change mixed to improper. Remember that mixed has a whole number and a proper fraction. And what we want to do is change this to an improper, where the top number will be larger than the bottom. To do that, we multiply the denominator times the whole number, and we add the numerator. In this case, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And as many cases you'll find in the next 2 weeks, the denominator stays the same, especially with addition and subtraction, and when you're reducing it anyhow. 5/2 is your improper fraction with this one here. So like always, I'll do a few more, but when I put it down, you press pause, try it on your own, and see if you're right. So if our next one was 7 2/5, I'm going to show you how to do it. Go ahead and press pause if you want. We multiply the denominator, which is our bottom number, times our whole number, and we add our numerator. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 2 is 37, and our denominator stays the same. And my last example, I'll do 10 4/5. The process remains the same. Denominator times numerator denominator times whole number plus the numerator. 5 times 10 is 50, plus 4 is 54. Denominator stays the same, over 5. So we got into a bunch of those. We're doing okay with them, and we'll need to do them for all of our fraction work. So this you have to have. You cannot go past and get ready to do the rest of the work until you have this concept. The next concept is changing improper to mixed. So remember, an improper fraction is simply a number that has a larger numerator than the denominator. And we want to change it back to a mixed fraction where it starts with a whole number. In order to do that, what we are doing is we're going to divide 3 into 14. How many times will 3 go into 14? From knowing your math facts, we know it goes in 4 times, which makes 12. If we tried 5 times, that would be 15, and it's too high a number. We can only go up to 14. So 3 goes in evenly into 14, no more than 4 times. Now that we know that, we simply say, okay, 4 times 3 is 12. My number was 14, however, so we subtract. 14 minus 12 has a remainder of 2, and again, the denominator stays the same. So 14 over 3 is equal to 4 2/3. For my next example, I will do 25 divided by 6. It's a good idea to have your math or any notebook if your facts aren't really quick, because we have that great flow chart on the back where you can quickly find out how many times 6 will go into 25. You simply go along the 6 times line until you get a number under 25, the closest number to it. Anyhow, or you use your calculator. If you used your calculator right now and you went 25 divided by 6, it would be 4 decimal something. 4, again, is going to be our whole number. So now we know it goes in 4 times. We multiply 4 times 6 just in our head, and 4 times 6 is 24. Again, we keep that number 24 in our head and we look, we started at 25. 25 minus 24 is 1, and the denominator stays the same. Remember, you're supposed to be looking at the question and hitting pause to make sure you're doing it right. Just don't watch all of mine. Make sure you take a shot at it. So now we'll go with a bigger number, like 92 over, let's try 9. So, in order to make this a mixed fraction, we have to find out how many times 9 divides into 92, or 92 divided by 9. We know it's 10. We should know it's 10. 9 times 10, this is the part you do in your head. 9 times 10 is 90. We started at 92, so 92 minus 90 is 2 remainder. Denominator stays the same. So that's the biggest part with that. Next, hold on here. The next part we're doing is reducing. Sorry, I cut your title off. Reducing the lowest terms. This happens when you have your answer, you've done all your math work, and if it was a full math question, it was out of 3, you'd get 2.5 for this answer right here, because it's not in its lowest terms, and we have to reduce it to its smallest value. We have to make sure if this has a common factor in 10 and 14, we find out what it is and we reduce it. Now 1, of course, will go into 10, and 1 will, of course, go into 14. But if we divide 10 and 14 by 1, it will still give us 10 over 14. So we need another number, and we always try to find the highest number that will go into both. We're looking for factors. So if I look at 10, I know my factors of 10 are 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. Well, I can't use 10 because even though 10 goes into the top number, 10 doesn't go evenly into 14. I can't use 5 because even though 5 goes into 10, I know 5 doesn't go in evenly to 14. But 2, however, will go into the top and bottom. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 14 divided by 2 is 7, and this would be our answer in its lowest terms. So if we're doing this next one, we have 20 and 4. This was our final answer, and we want to figure out what the answer is, or what our lowest terms are. We have to find a common factor to 20 and 4. Now, I'll start with 4 because it's the easiest number to figure out at the beginning. My factors of 4 are 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. So in this case, I can look up the top and see what numbers go into 20. If I chose 2, that would be okay because 2 goes into 4 and 2 goes into 20, but it's not the biggest number that goes into the top and bottom, and you would just have to end up reducing twice. So what we do is we try to find the biggest factor that goes into both numbers. And 4 goes into 4 at one time, and 4 will also go into 20. So when we go to reduce, we say, okay, how many times does 4 go into itself? And that's 1 time. And how many times does 4 go into 20? And that's 5 times. When you get this improper fraction, 5 over 1, you simply write it as 5 because there is no remainder after you divide 5 by 1. I'm going to do 2 more. Again, you should be turning your, you should be pausing the program and then going on, but I'm looking for factors of 33 and 60. Now these numbers are getting bigger, but with 33, it's kind of a trick, or the more you understand your math, there are not very many factors of 33. There are 1 times 33 and 3 times 11. So those are all the factors that you can use. We're not going to use 1 because that won't change anything. We know that 33 won't go into 60, so we can't use that. And we know 11 won't go into 60, so we can't use it. So what we're really trying to think of is, does 3 go into 33 and 60? And of course, at this point, you might need your calculator. But it does. We know that 3 will go into 33 11 times. And we find out that 3 will go into 60 20 times. And that is our lowest terms for that fraction. So we have one last fraction to do. And when we're looking at our factors of 28, there are multiple factors that will go into the top and bottom. But the biggest one that will go into the top and bottom is 4. So 4 into 28 is 7 times, and 4 into 38 is 8 times, or sorry, 4 into 32 is 8, 4 into 32 is 8 times, I got it. And our lowest terms will be 7/8.